Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jai Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Mr. Paramahamsa. His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parujikacharya Astotra Tatashi Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavini ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 5th day of April, or 4th? On this 5th day of April 2022 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we're in chapter 3 entitled Karma Yoga, text 9 again, page 146. Yagyartat karmano nyatra loko ayam karma bandhanaha tadartam karma kaunteya mukta sangha samachara yagyartat karmano nyatra lokoyam karma bandhanaha tadartam karma kaunteya mukta sangha samachara yagyartat karmano nyatra lokoyam karma bandhanaha tadartam karma kaunteya mukta sangha samachara yagyartat karmano nyatra lokoyam karma bandhanaha tadartam karma kaunteya mukta sangha samachara. Yagyartat karmano nyatra lokoyam karma bandhanaha tadartam karma kaunteya mukta sangha samachara. Yagyartat karmano nyatra lokoyam karma bandhanaha tadartam karma kaunteya mukta sangha samachara. Yagyartat karmano nyatra lokoyam karma bandhanaha tadartam karma kaunteya mukta sangha samachara. Yagyartat karmano nyatra lokoyam karma bandhanaha tadartam karma kaunteya mukta sangha samachara. Anyone on Zoom want to chant, you think? There's one. Okay.
Yagyartat karmano nyatra
Yagyartat karmano nyatra
lokoyam karma bandhanaha
lokoyam karma bandhanaha
tadartam karma kaunteya
tadartam karma kaunteya
mukta sangha samachara.
mukta sangha samachara. I'm sorry, Saul, did you want to try? No. Not yet. Not yet. Okay. Yajña artat, done only for the sake of yajña or Viṣṇu. Karmanaha, than work, anyatra, otherwise, lokaha, world, ayam, this, karma bandhanaha, bondage by work, tat, of him, artam, for the sake, karma, work, kaunteya, O son of Kunti, mukta sangha, liberated from association, samachara, do perfectly. Before we continue, Saul, can you run back to make sure all the doors that between us and the kitchen are closed? Thank you. Including this one on the altar. Translation. Work has to be done as a sacrifice for Viṣṇu. Otherwise, work causes bondage in this material world. Therefore, O son of Kunti, perform your prescribed duties for his satisfaction, and in that way you will always remain free from bondage. Purport. Since one has to work even for the simple maintenance of the body, the prescribed duties for a particular social position and quality are so made that their purpose can be fulfilled. Yajña means Lord Viṣṇu or sacrificial performances. All sacrificial performances also are meant for the satisfaction of Lord Viṣṇu. The Vedas enjoin, yajño vai Viṣṇu. In other words, the same purpose is served whether one performs prescribed yajñas or directly serves Lord Viṣṇu. Krishna consciousness is therefore performance of yajña as it is prescribed in this verse. The Varnashram institution also aims at satisfying Lord Viṣṇu. Varnashramacharabhata Purushena parakpuman Viṣṇur aradyate. Vishnu Purana 388. Therefore, one has to work for the satisfaction of Viṣṇu. Any other work done in this material world will be a cause of bondage. For both good and evil work have their reactions, and any reaction binds the performer. Therefore, one has to work in Krishna consciousness to satisfy Krishna or Viṣṇu, and while performing such activities, one is in a liberated stage. This is the great art of doing work, and in the beginning, this process requires very expert guidance. One should therefore act very diligently under the expert guidance of a devotee of Lord Krishna, or under the direct instruction of Lord Krishna himself, under whom Arjuna had the opportunity to work. Nothing should be performed for sense gratification, but everything should be done for the satisfaction of Krishna. This practice will not only save one from the reaction of work, but also gradually elevate one to transcendental loving service of the Lord, which alone can raise one to the kingdom of God. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnanandana Salakaya Chakshu Unmidatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So this verse is kind of pivotal in this whole chapter. The whole idea of karma yoga is to teach us how we can live in this world, because as Krishna said a few verses back, you have to do something. The idea that you can just sit and not do anything is crazy, because you're going to be working with your mind and eventually you'll work with your body. So there has to be an art and a science of work, of action, that doesn't bind you. And not only doesn't bind you, but gradually releases you from all of your previous bondage. We should understand that we're all bound tightly hand and foot by our previous activities. I was just hearing a lecture, Prabhupada quotes a verse from Kapila Deva, is it? Yes, I think. Karmana daivanetraya jantur deho papatye striyapa vishta uradam veta kangsa kanashraya. Something like that. And what karmana daivanetrana? Daivanetrana means by the vision of the daiva, of the divine. That means the super soul, foremost, is watching, seeing, nature's eyes. And all of the gods, sometimes it's said you can't hide, anything you do is witnessed by the sun, by the moon, by the different devas. So everything we do is under surveillance, if you will. And if it's done for fruitive motives, if it's done for some selfish motive, even though it may be for the good of the family, for the good of the country, or for the good of the whole humanity, but it's still within the realm of false ego, which we've expanded. I identify with this group, I identify with this family, like that. Then that causes bondage, meaning that you're incurring karma, and then when you leave this body, karma, then all of these witnesses who've been taking notes, they don't forget anything, they say, okay, this is what he's got on the good side, he's got on the bad side, here's where he's going next. They decide, and you take, then you enter into, if you're going to be a human body, enter into a particle of semen, go into a womb, and you're born. So this is, we've been in this situation since time immemorial. We don't know how many lifetimes of Brahma we've been doing this. And the basic motive or the basic principle of Vedic culture is how we can break this cycle. How can we get free from the bonds of birth and death, or more specifically birth, old age, disease, and death. And then again, birth, old age, disease, and death, like that. So Krishna is teaching this art to us. Yagyartart kamano. Activities have to be formed for the sake. Arha means for the interest. Artha, this word artha comes up again and again. It can mean money, it can mean the meaning of a word is also artha. All of Prabhupada's purports are arthas. Or it can mean here for the sake of, for the interest of yajña. And yajña can mean as sacrifice. They have to be formed as a sacrifice for Viṣṇu, because we're personalists. It's not just that we earn some money and we throw it in the ocean. That's silly. You earn some money and you put, a certain proportion, as much as you can afford. You have to maintain your body and soul together, family, fine. In the handi, or you do a project, or somehow you sacrifice it for Viṣṇu. Otherwise, you get bound up. You You get bound up by the results. That's what this whole first line is about. Yagyartat kamano. One has to karma has to be done for yajña, which, as Prabhupada explains right in the second sentence, yajña means Lord Viṣṇu or sacrificial performances, one or the other. Otherwise, anyatra, that karma, you'll be bound. Bandhana. Prabhupada points out in the lecture, it's the same word, bandhana and bondage. Therefore, for his sake, tadartam karma contd, work for his sake, and you become free, mukta sangha. Now here's this word sangha again. It keeps coming up. We have this, central principle of devotional service, sadhu sangha, association with devotees. But sangha also means attachment. You become free from all attachment, samachara, and therefore do it perfectly. Do it this way. So this is how we work. Now, Krishna consciousness is much more than just working, getting some fruits of the labor and giving it to Viṣṇu. You see, that's a basic principle. You really want to do work that from beginning to end is for the pleasure of Viṣṇu. You see, so that you're conscious while you're doing it that, okay, I'll get some fruits from this and this will be for Viṣṇu. That's more along the line of bhakti. But even if you simply work hard, make some money, you're not really thinking of Krishna, but then at the end of the day you give a portion to Krishna, then this is also eradicating the karma. You're not building new karma. So that's what's going on here. Now this verse, Varnashramacharada Purushena Pamakpaman Viṣṇurajade Pananya Tatosha Karmana, that this was the answer, the first answer, Ramananda Roy, when Lord Chaitanya was asking him about what is, there's two basic questions you want to ask if you find someone who's an acharya or a realized soul. What is the goal of life and how can I achieve it? Sadhya and sadhana. Comes up again and again. So that's what Lord Chaitanya asked. He took the role of the student, and Ramananda Roy was the guru. He was a little reluctant. So Lord Chaitanya spoke that first. Kiba ripa, kiba nyasi, shudrike ninori, ye Krishna tattvaveta se guru hoy. It says, what's the difference? If you may be a sannyasi, you may a shudra, or a vipra or a brahma. It doesn't matter. If you know the science of Krishna thoroughly, then you can be a guru. And knowing it means living it. It's not just some book learning. So Ramananda Roy was qualified. So he was encouraged, and then he became the answer of the questions. It's interesting. He was asking the question. So this was the first answer. If one does his duties very nicely in Varnashram, that's worship of Viṣṇu. Viṣṇu nanyata tosha karanam. That's no other way. He's saying. Lord just said, no, that's external. You can go on. He kept asking him to go further and further and further. And interestingly enough, even when he got to Sarva Dharma Parityaja, that wasn't far enough. So that's also external. Keep going. So you see they're going to a very advanced stage. Those conversations, chapter 8, Madhya Lila, are some of the most, how should I say, intimate, advanced understandings of bhakti that are explained in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So finally he gets to this verse, which is a prayer of Lord Brahma in the chapter 14 of the 10th canto. You may recall that Brahma was curious about, he was witnessing the killing of Aghasura, then he saw Krishna taking lunch with his friends on the bank of the Yamuna, having a great time, and so he said, who is this little boy? Is he actually my father? Is this actually Mahavishnu that I'm seeing here? That can't be, because this guy's got a little yogurt in his hand and fruit, So he famously, the calves had wandered away. They wanted to have lunch too, but they have to find some nice grass. So they're wandering away, and suddenly the boys realize, oh, my God, what's happened to our, we've been responsible for the calves, and now they're gone. What to do? So Krishna said, don't worry. You just sit here, take your lunch. I'll go find the calves and bring them back. So he went, couldn't find the calves. Brahma had taken them and put them in a cave and put them under mystic slumber or something. So Krishna goes back to the bank of the Yamuna, and what does he find? He doesn't find the boys. He finds emptiness where the boys were. So now what to do? He says, how can I go back alone? The mothers and the cows will be aggrieved. You see? So what does he do? Tapas, He expands. Only Krishna can do that. Expands to all the cows, there's thousands and thousands of calves even. And all the boys, there's thousands and thousands of boys. With all their little idiosyncrasies, special way of dressing. Everyone is individual, right? And if anyone's going to know there's something amiss here, it's the mothers, right? The mothers know. They couldn't tell either. So then everything just went on as normal. So Brahma comes back after like a moment of his time, and he says, well, maybe I was playing with fire, I better go back. What's this? I put the calves and the boys in mystic slumber, and there they are playing with Krishna still. Okay. So he's bewildered. This is called Brahma Vimohan Leela, right? So that was after a year, almost a year of our time. So a year Krishna had been playing. And they didn't mention the killing of Aghasura, because these, that was understood by the real boys and calves. This is the special, so they didn't mention it, which is kind of dramatic. Here was this 8-mile-long python, it was just sitting there for a year, corpse. Anyway, so finally Balaram, somehow or other Balaram didn't know either. Go figure. And then the last 5 days, he said, there was this incident where these cows came running down the hill to lick their calves, but they weren't their actual calves. They were Krishna as calves, and it was all very mysterious to Balaram why there was so much love and so much attraction. The men came down who were hurting them. They were upset and angry because they couldn't stop them from running down. They were galloping down the hill. It describes specifically they had their front and back legs together. That's a gallop, like a horse. Cows don't usually do that, but they so much wanted to be with these boys. To these calves. And then, and so the cowherd men, they were also upset, and they came down. They said they were angry and upset. They couldn't stop thinking. But when they got down there, they were their children, and their hearts melted. They lifted them up, tears fell. They smelled their heads and everything. Balaram said, "What's going on? There's too much love here. There's not needed." So Krishna told them what happened. So anyway, I'm not sure how I got onto that. But, oh yes, so then after that, then Brahma realized this really is Narayan. One of his prayers was, "Oh, are you not Narayan?" Famous verse, Narayana. And one of the other prayers is the first one that Lord Chaitanya accepted in his conversation with Ramananda Roy. That's very good, now go on. And they went all the way up to Conjugal Rasa. So this is the verse, it's interesting. He says, Gane priyasam udapasya namanta eva jivanti san mukaditam bhavadiya vartam stane stita shutigatam tanuban manobhi ye prayaso ajititito pasitaistri lokyam. So he says, just give up all your hard labor of speculation about the absolute truth and all of this neti and gyane priyasam udapasya, throw it far away, and surrender namanta. Offer respects to the great souls who are always glorifying Krishna. Gane piyasam namanta eva jivanti san, live this way, jivanti san mukaditam babadiya vartam, and listen to the great souls and the accounts of your glories. He's speaking directly to Krishna, little boy Krishna, with the fruit in his hand. He realized this really is Vishnu. Gane piyasam udapasyaman jivanti sanmukaditam. Sanmukaditam means the or sons or the santas of the saints. Mukaditam, from the mouth. Bhavadiya vartam, accounts of your name, form, qualities, and pastimes. This is the main subject matter for hearing for devotees. Name, form, qualities, and pastime. And stani, you don't have to do anything radical. Don't leave home, don't take sannyas, you just do this, add this. Shuddhigatam, follow this path of hearing. And then he has a phrase that's very significant. Tanu van manobhir. Tanu means body, van means words, and manobha means mind. So it's not that you just listen, and you check your watch or you check your phone and then you leave. No, you have to serve these vibrations with your body, meaning there's instructions there, you have to use your senses as Van, you repeat them, and manobha, you contemplate them. And by this process, simply hearing from the great souls, ye prayaso ajita jita, you become eligible to conquer the unconquerable Lord. How is that possible? Ye prayaso ajita as trilokyam. In all three worlds, there's no other way to conquer him. In other words, you can develop love. He's only conquered by love. No enemy can conquer him, or ordinary person. So this was said by Lord Chaitanya to be fine. This is good. Now go on, and he went further after that. So it all begins with actions, with activity. In other words, bhakti is a science. When we in our conditioned state, all of our senses, our mind, we're covered by eons of exposure to the material energy, and therefore we need to have a great cleanse. Not some diet cleanse, but a consciousness cleanse. How does the Shikshastika begin? Do you know that? Exactly. Chaito Darpana Marjanam. This Sankirtan movement cleanses the mirror of the heart, of the mind, so that you can see yourself and you can see Krishna in there also. And by doing that, the blazing fire of material birth and death is extinguished. Right away, you're making great progress toward liberation. You're not flailing around in the material energy, trying all kinds of material solutions to the problems, which never get you anywhere. This is the solution. This first benefit, but the ultimate benefit is prema. We should always remember that's the ultimate goal. It includes liberation. So how to act in this world so that one is progressively liberated and is eradicating previous karma. So this verse, Varnashramachavadata, this was the first answer and this was rejected. Now there's another one, Atak Shri Krishna Namadi Nabhave Grayam Indriyai. No. Atak Pumbir Dvija Shrestha Varnashrama Vibhagasaha Svanatutasya Dharmasa Sangsade Haritoshanam. This is right near the beginning of Bhagavatam. And it's dealing with the what is real Dharma. This is again in that book that we have out on the shelf there, Dharma, the Way of Transcendence. And it's near the beginning of the description of real Dharma. And he's dealing with Varnashram Dharma. Where does Varnashram Dharma come in? Is that superfluous to bhakti? And here he says no. He says the perfection of Varnashram Dharma, the four Varnas, or the social class, and the four spiritual class, brahmachari, and so forth, is to satisfy Viṣṇu. Atak pumbir dvija shrestha varnashrama vibhagasha svanachitasya dharmasya sangsiddhiya haritoshanam. Sangsiddhiya haritoshanam means the perfection is to satisfy Hari. So all the varnas and ashrams are also supposed to be composed of devotees. In other words, it's the only way where you can really be satisfied in every one of your ashrams and every one of your varnas, if you're chanting Hare Krishna, if you're doing it as an act of devotion. Otherwise, without Krishna in the center, everything becomes corrupted over time. The Brahmins trying to, lord it over the others. The Kshatriyas are looking for a way to exploit their position. And the Vaishyas are making money, accumulating books, sending money to the secret bank accounts. And the Shudras are unsatisfied, forming unions, revolutions. But if everybody, from top to bottom can meet for a big kirtan once a day, then everybody becomes satisfied. And then you get the Sudras, they give charity for them, and everyone's nice. So Krishna consciousness makes everything successful if he's in the center. That's the idea. So this is how to mold our life in such a way that as far as possible in our situation, we're doing things as a sacrifice for Viṣṇu. We're remembering him progressively and using our fruits of our labor for helping the Sankirtan movement. And in this way, we don't know how many eons of karma we're eradicating and getting the favor of Krishna so that we can be blessed in this life and the next life. Okay, now any comments or questions on this verse? Otherwise we can proceed. How this world is... Did you want to make sense? No? Okay. All right, let's go on to 10. Sahaya, unless there's comments from Zoomland. Nothing. I'll look for you since you're here. Sahayagya praja srishtva purovacha prajapatihi anena pasavishtadvam eshavostvishta kamaduk In the beginning of creation, the Lord of all creatures sent forth generations of men and demigods along with sacrifices for Viṣṇu, and blessed them by saying, "Be thou happy by this yajña," sacrifice, because its performance will bestow upon you everything desirable for living happily and achieving liberation. Purport. The material creation by the Lord of creatures, Viṣṇu, is a chance offered to the conditioned souls to come back home, back to Godhead. All living entities within the material creation are conditioned by material nature because of their forgetfulness of their relationship to Viṣṇu or Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Vedic principles are to help us understand this eternal relation, as it is stated in the Bhagavad Gita, Vedaischa sarvār ahameva vedyaha. The Lord says that the purpose of the Vedas is to understand Him. In the Vedic hymns it is said, Patim Vishvasyat Meshwaram. Therefore, the Lord of the living entities is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Viṣṇu. In the Srimad Bhagavatam also, 2.4.20, Srila Shukadeva Goswami describes the Lord as Pati in so many ways. Pati means Lord in this context. I'll say, you say, Shriyak Patir Yagyapatir Prajapatir Diyam Patir Lokapatir Dharapati Patir Gatischandaka Vishni Satpatam Pasidatam me Bhagavan Satam Pati. The Prajapati is Lord Viṣṇu, and he is the Lord of all living creatures, all worlds and all beauties, and the protector of everyone. The Lord created this material world to enable the conditioned souls to learn how to perform yajñas or sacrifices for the satisfaction of Viṣṇu, so that while in the material world they can live very comfortably without anxiety, and after finishing the present material body, they can enter into the kingdom of God. That is the whole program for the conditioned soul. By performance of yajña, the conditioned souls gradually become Krishna conscious and become godly in all respects. In the age of Kali, the Sankirtan Yajña, the chanting of the names of God, is recommended by the Vedic scriptures. And this transcendental system was introduced by Lord Chaitanya for the deliverance of all men in this age. Sankirtan Yajña and Krishna consciousness go well together. Lord Krishna, in his devotional form as Lord Chaitanya, is mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam 11.5.32 as follows, with special reference to the Sankirtan Yajña. I'll say, you say, Krishna Varnam Tvisha Krishnam Sango Pangastra Parshadam Yajñai Sankirtana Prayar Yajanti Hisumeda. In this age of Kali, people who are endowed with sufficient intelligence will worship the Lord, who is accompanied by his associates, by performance of Sankirtan Yajña. Other yajñas prescribed in the Vedic literatures are not easy to perform in this age of Kali, but the Sankirtan Yajña is easy and sublime for all purposes, as recommended in the Bhagavad Gita also, 9.14. So let's turn to 9.14, which I think is, what is it? Let's find out. I'm sorry. Oh, yes. Satatam kirtiyanto mam. I'll say, you say. Satatam kirtiyanto mam. Yatantascha dridavataha. Namasyantascha mam bhaktya. Nityayukta upasate. Always chanting my glories, endeavoring with great determination, bowing down before me, these great souls perpetually worship me with devotion. So these are the Mahatmas as spoken of in the previous verse, taking shelter of the internal energy. So how fortunate we are. Krishna is prescribing yajña, yajñartat, and we've been given the most delightful and easy to perform yajña. Sankirtan yajña, congregational chanting. And it is the proper way to worship the Yuga avatar, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And what's the result? Final goal of life, pure love of God. Let's run through that first verse again. I'll say, you say, those who know it. Cheto darpanamarjanam papamahadavagni nirvapanam. Shreyakaidavachandrika patadanam vidyavadhu jivanam. Anandam buddhivardhanam pratipadam purnamita swadanam. Pratipadam. Sarvatmasna param param vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam. All right, now you're going to have to endure my poeticized version. It's not exactly word by word. So this, all glories to the chanting of Shri Krishna's holy names, which easily extinguishes samsara's blazing flames by polishing the lust-encrusted mirror of the heart. The chanting is the waxing moon that knows the secret art of causing the white lotus of good fortune to unfurl its petals far and wide throughout this bleak and blighted world. Of transcendental knowledge, which will take us to life's goal, the chanting of the name of Krishna is the life and soul. The ocean of ecstatic bliss floods far beyond its bounds, wherever Krishna's merciful and mystic name resounds. Indeed, whenever Krishna's names are sung in congregation, at every step one tastes a joy that knows no limitation. So hear with great attention as I earnestly request, please chant Shri Krishna's holy names and be supremely blessed. The soothing nectar of the name will bathe your consciousness, bestow pure love for Krishna, and eradicate distress. The whole movement is based on that verse. So this verse is really like the foundation of the Hare Krishna movement. And you study it and you can see it's progressive. You know, it starts out with, we have to cleanse. We have to cleanse the heart, cleanse the mind. And on the basis of understanding that we're in a contaminated state of life. And that's why we're suffering. This whole idea of lust covering our knowledge, it's just like, as Lord Chaitanya explains, it's like dust on a mirror. In other words, we're thinking that we're seeing reality, but we're just seeing a very distorted view of what we are. Mainly that we're these bodies, we're not spirit. So that's the first step, is chanting the name, cleansing, and so that you understand, oh, I'm not this gross and subtle body, I'm actually a spiritual being. And as soon as you do that, and you're getting rid of all your karma by this yajña, you're in a liberated state, which means that you're no longer feeling the bonds of your previous karma and all of these attachments that we build up in each lifetime that keep us bound here. This is we've been reading that periodically here. The famous verse by Yamunacharya. Oh, by the way, was it today, Ramanujacharya, or yesterday? I think yesterday we had Ramanujacharya. We didn't read about him, hear about him. Maybe tomorrow we'll read something. So, but his spiritual master, Yamunacharya, he wrote this famous verse, quoted, isn't it? It is today. Okay. So we'll quote this verse from his guru, Ramanujacharya. Yadavadi mama cheta Krishna padada vinde namanamanasadhaman yuditam rantamasi tadavadi batanadi sangame smayamane bhavati makabikadu sustu nishti vanancha. It says, ever since I have been enjoying ever new mellows in serving the lotus feet of Nandanandana, Krishna. Since that time, whenever I think, because he was an emperor, he had all the chances for his sense gratification. Whenever I think of sex with a woman, my lips curl in distaste and I spit at the thought. He really feels disgust. It's not like he's fighting it, feeling attracted. But he's actually, this is real vairagya. Vairagya is that he has not only no attraction, but he realizes that this was not a good thing. So that comes with more and more attraction for the holy name. The process of purification is so powerful and so deep cleansing that it's perfectly suited for this age. What is that verse? Oh yeah. Color dosha nide rajan. This is in the 12th canto. The 12th canto is a whole chapter describing all the ills of the Kali Yuga. You don't live very long, you don't have very good memory, mercy decreases, and all of these good qualities decrease, And leaders become demons. Demons take the role of, we're seeing that already. Do we really think we can go on another 427,000 years of this? I always thought that was... Seems like it may come, Kali Yuga may end at any minute now. Anyway, so the verse goes like this. It's perfectly in tune with the one we read in Krishna Varnam Tusha Krishnam and the Shikshastika verse. Kalir doshe nidhe rajan. Kalir doshe nidhe rajan. Asti eko mahadguna. Kirtanareva Krishnasya mukta sangha param vrajet. Mukta sangha, didn't we just have that phrase? Yeah. Mukta sangha, text 9, that was the verse we started with. So, it's very important understanding. Become free of all attachments, bad association. So what this verse says, this Kali Yuga is an ocean of faults. Does anyone want to argue about that? It's an ocean of faults, and the faults seem to be multiplying exponentially every day. But there's one very good quality of this age. And that is that simply by chanting Krishna's holy name, one becomes free of all attachments and free of all, and Param Vrajet goes to the supreme abode of Krishna. So we should be really serious about chanting. Sometimes we have this illusion that in an environment of an ashram in a temple where there's always something to do, you know, to cut up the vegetables, make the offering, clean up, do this, do that, you know, you got to drive off. And we end up thinking, oh, the kirtan is going on. This is a good chance for me to sneak out and do my duties. But our prime duty is to get attachment for the holy name. The kirtan is the most important part. We read this letter from Prabhupada in one of our readings in the morning. It's all about chanting Hare Krishna. He was writing to, I think, Ray Rama, who was very key devotee at the beginning because he was the editor of Back to Godhead. He had worked professionally and writing comics and things, so he had good grasp of English. And Prabhupada really relied on him to make Back to Godhead happen and readable, you know, like. So he had an important position. So he had written to Prabhupada, said, Prabhupada would all, and then the book started to come out, and he was also an editor of the Bhagavad Gita, the first Bhagavad Gita, which was a bridge, but it was big enough, you know, it's a lot of work. Says, Prabhupada, I don't have time to do all these things, and I don't know if I can go on Harinam. I think you don't see his letter, but this, the way Prabhupada's letter says, no, you have to go out an hour a day on Harinam, and you have to chant your 16 rounds, you know. And then if you miss some of the other functions of the temple, such as the class, that's okay. If you really can't do it, you have to do your work on, you know, you're getting it through the work. But you have to chant your rounds, and you have to go out on Harinam 1 hour a day. Now, when I joined, it was 3 hours a day we were going out. And then it came down back to 1 hour for the press when we got really busy. But that was the essential thing, you know. So we're not going out every day, but at least we have kirtans every day. We should try to take advantage of the kirtans. Very important. And as Prabhupada says, he says, I don't, he doesn't quote it, but I think he's also referring to the famous verse, Hare Nama eva kevalam kalo nasteva gatiranyata. This is all the Sankirtan Yajna. Says, if you want to achieve the supreme goal of life in this age, when dissension and chaos abound, there is no other way, there is no other way, there is no other way that can ever be found. But to chant Krishna's name, but to chant Krishna's name, but to chant Krishna's name with a stout-hearted vow, and to pray, O Lord Krishna, O friend of the poor, let my head ever under your lotus feet bow. And that last part isn't in the verse, but it's the Trinata Bhisuni chain idea, that one has to remain humble. So that's our yajña. This is the karma yoga is all about yajña, sacrifice, sacrificing the fruits of your labor, sacrificing your time to work for Krishna. And here Krishna is starting to speak about how this also makes you materially prosperous if you perform these yajñas. There's one verse that says, all right, look, there's all of these deities, there's all of these demigods, and we may think, well, what about Vayu? I mean, I don't want there to be hurricanes, so let me sacrifice for Vayu, and I got to sacrifice for Indra, and I got to, and they're all there in the Vedas. But it says, Devarshi bhutapta nrinam pratinam nakinkaro nayam nrinicha rajan sarvatmanayak sharanam shadanyam gato mukunda kundam padurichikartam. That we're kind of debtors. I mean, after all, we enjoy the sun, we enjoy the air, certainly, and the water, all the necessities of life, and they're provided by the gods. There's a god of water, there's a god, a sun god, there's a Vayu, air god. So we're in debt. Just like if you get your electricity, if you don't pay, if you don't sacrifice and pay, it's shut off. So, but this verse says, yes, we're just taking birth. You're not only the devas, but the rishis. What about your teachers? Even your grade school teachers or high school teachers, you're indebted to them. Other living beings, the forefathers, all these things. But then it says, Sarvatmana sharanam sharanyam, that if you surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then all the debts are consolidated in that one. You're serving the Lord, then you don't have to worry about all these other debts. So that means that the devas are providing everything in abundance. That's explained here. Devan bhavyatana te deva bhavanantava. Is that we can, we're not going to start worshiping Indra or anyone. Krishna said it's not necessary, and he proved it. Again, the Govardhan Lila. So, the devotees can live, happily and comfortably by just sacrifice to Vishnu, which begins with the Sankirtan. But our whole life should be one. All work should be aimed toward, because you should see the connection to Krishna in everything we do. That's the idea. Go ahead, Dimitri.
Thank you. So, in the text says that along with man and demigods, for generations of men and demigods, along with sacrifices for Vishnu. So it means
this is where was this 12?
Text number 10.
Oh, 10.
Of the third chapter.
Okay.
So it implies that the demigods, they also perform sacrifices for Vishnu, and is that let's say well, also they not all the demigods must offer sacrifice and work for Vishnu.
Well, in the beginning of the creation, the Lord of all creatures sent forth generations of men and demigods, along with sacrifices for Vishnu, and blessed them by saying, "Be thou happy by this yajño sacrifice." I'm from the purport. I gather that this is the sacrifices take place on earth. I mean, because Indra, he did perform 100 horse sacrifices. So yeah, I guess they do sometimes. Yeah, the idea is, but Indra tends to lose it. He tends to get puffed up. And so when he, I'll perform the sacrifice for Vishnu, but what about my Indra yajña? But Krishna says, no, you don't need you don't have to worship anyone but him. Later on we come on the verse in the 9th chapter, famous verse. How's it go? God, you know this verse. Those who worship the gods go to the gods. How's it start? Oh, God. I'm dying. We're going to find it. Chapter 9 for sure. There's no guess who know it? Yanti. Yanti Devan. Yanti Deva Vrada Devan. Pitrin Yanti Bhutivata. Bhutanta Yanti Bhujaya. Yanti Mud Yajño Pimam. This is what Yajño. This again, sacrifice again. Those who worship the demigods will take birth among the demigods. Those who worship the ancestors go to the ancestors. Those who worship the ghosts and spirits will take a birth among such beings, and those who worship me will live with me. So you have to be careful who you worship. This is the whole idea. This comes down. Just worship Krishna, and let him take care of everything. You'll get enough rain, but not too much rain, and everything will be fine. Everything's consolidated in Krishna worship.
For the most part, demigods do not worship Krishna.
They don't worship demigods. They worship Krishna. If like Brahma, he knows. He was a little confused in this pastime I outlined, but he's the foremost devotee. He's given all with some material attachment. But he's a devotee. He's working hard, for Krishna and creating the universe and passing down the Vedas. He's the head of our sampradaya. So he's not worshipping anyone but Vishnu. That's for sure. I can say that with confidence. Hare Krishna. All right, so we're almost done. Let me give you a poem. We did one poem, but here's one I was just remembering. This is a nice song. Prabhupada gives the translation of this song by Rupa Goswami. There are a whole series of songs in the Stavamala, one of which is very famous, Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Dayate. But this one is quoted, its translation is given in a purport, I think in the first canto or second canto. I can find it for you. But the Sanskrit goes like this. Here's the refrain. Krishna bhavandam vande manmanasamandakadama payinita patapankatamakadande. O Krishna, dearest Lord, I bow to you and then entreat. Please place the bee of my restless mind in the honey of your lotus feet. Yadapi samadashu vidadapi pashyati nandamanakaga mericham. Inamachami nashamyatavachata tadapi kripapa devicham. Even Brahma, deep in trance, cannot achieve his goal. A glimpse of your effulgent toenails, soothing to the soul. But still, O Lord, because I've heard of your compassion's endless waves, that very boon is what my poor heart craves. I'm sorry, I forgot the poem exactly. Then the next one goes, Bhaktamadasya viyadya vimadamanatvayamamatila matri. Padameshwarata tadabhitabhata katurgadagadana badatri. Despite great effort, I have not attained a drop of pure devotion. This has brought me endless pain. Yet though it seems impossible to ever fill this need, your monumental power gives me hope I shall succeed. Krishna bhavandam vande manmanasamadakadamapayinitapotapankatamakadande. O Krishna, dearest Lord, I bow to you and then entreat. Please place the bee of my restless mind in the honey of your lotus feet. I am avalolitiyada sanatana kaladabhuda sabharam nivasucha nitya mahamati nindanibandan mananimasaram. Today, eternal Lord, please place my mind upon your feet, the reservoir of endless mellows, wonderful and sweet. I pray that for eternity my mind may there reside, to relish luscious honey that defeats ambrosia's pride. O Krishna, dearest Lord, I bow to you and then entreat. Please place the bee of my restless mind in the honey of your lotus feet. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. If you don't have it, the poetry file, write to me, I'll send it to you. We can all sing this song together. Can you imagine if we all sang it on key together? Where's Sal? Anyway.